Restorative poses are really our antidote to our modern lives. They allow us to come out of our stress mode, our fight and flight mode, and into our relaxation mode, to allow our bodies to heal, to repair ourselves, to allow us to settle down and start to undo some of the damage that maybe our hectic lives do to us every day. So restorative yoga poses are critical to have in your practice, and this pose of the day, legs up the wall, is one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite. I love this pose. It's often called the Great Rejuvenator because it is a bit of an inversion without inverting your upper body. We will use some props, and I'll show you a little bit about that, to get a slight inversion in our upper body, but it's mostly about our legs. So this is a great pose to undo any of the sort of pooling that can happen from being on your feet all day. You know, if you find that your feet or your ankles are very tired or maybe even swollen at the end of a long day on your feet, this is a wonderful pose. It's absolutely going to help you reverse the work day, right? Or the day on your feet, whatever it was for. So legs up the wall in Sanskrit is Viparita Karani. That's the name of the pose. And we're going to use some props, or I'm going to show you how to use some props. You of course have the option to not use any props at all. I do have a lot of students who prefer to use no props for this pose. So that is always there for you. However, I'm going to show you how to use some of these props because I think they're really cushy. So I will use a bolster. That is sort of the bare minimum that I really like to use. Now, we've seen a little bit of legs up the wall in our shoulder stand tutorial early in the challenge. And when we did that tutorial, we put our props all the way up against the wall. Now, this one is different from shoulder stand. You're going to use the bolster a few inches away from the wall. Leave about 3 to 4 inches away from the wall. That will allow you to sort of slide your sitting bones, wedge yourself down closer to the wall, and you'll see how that works when you get up into the pose. So you don't want to push the bolster all the way against the wall. Leave a little bit of space. I like to use a little rectangular bolster here. Some people prefer a round bolster. That's just a personal preference. And I like to use a smaller bolster here. Some people like to use a bigger bolster. However, I will tell you that try not to go too big with your bolster here. Some people, when they get on a big bolster, or a lot of people I've experienced when they get on a really big bolster, feel sort of overwhelmed here. So you want to keep your bolster sort of on the medium to small size here. And if you don't have a bolster, you can use rolled up blankets or folded blankets even. You can keep the same fold as we had for shoulder stand, just fold them once more so they make a rectangle, or you can of course roll them up if you prefer a round surface. You may also prefer to have a block or to have a strap, or both. And I'll show you how to use them. The strap will keep your legs together when you come into a nice relaxed state in the pose, and the block will go on your feet, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So those are the props that you may want. In place of a block, you may want a sandbag. If you have a sandbag, that can be really nice. Otherwise, let's get started. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to come into this pose. I went over it briefly in shoulder stand. And I'll show you my method second, my preferred method second. The easiest way, if you're really unfamiliar with this pose, or if you have any sort of limitations that keep you from being able to do the tuck and roll that we did earlier in the challenge. The easiest way to get into this is to sit on the edge of your bolster, put your hands behind you, and just start to walk your bottom close to the wall. Swing your legs up the wall, and then lower yourself down. That is a very nice way to come into this pose. That's nice and soft and easy, but I prefer my tuck and roll method. Maybe I should call it the stop, drop, and roll method. So to do this, you sit on your heels, very close to your wall, and you sit very close to your bolster if you're using it. You lean forward, you tuck the shoulder that's right next to the bolster, and you roll up onto the bolster, and it puts you right in the middle pretty much every time, which is what I really love about doing the tuck and roll. Now, once you're here, for most of us, we will try to get ourselves as close to the wall as possible. So you may have to wiggle until your sitting bones actually touch the wall, or your bottom actually touches the wall. And once you're there, you'll notice, if you're using the bolster, that you can sort of wedge your sitting bones down in that space in between the bolster and the wall, which is quite nice. Now, the only reason that you won't try to get yourself very close to the wall is if you have very strong hamstrings, in which case you will be unable to straighten your legs against the wall, and it may even be very uncomfortable by your sitting bones or even in your lower back. So if that's the case for you, you will actually wiggle yourself away from the wall until it's easy for you to straighten your legs. So your bottom comes farther away from the wall, and then at a certain point it will be easy for you to straighten your legs. So I do want you to do that. Take that into consideration if you have very strong hamstrings. So if you don't have those very strong hamstrings, you can come all the way up against the wall. Now, once you're here, you have a few things you can do with your arms. And basically, you put your arms where they are the most comfortable and where they can be the most relaxed. My personal preference is this sort of cactus position with your arms, where your elbows are bent and your palms face up. That's a very nice position where you can walk your shoulder blades underneath you and keep your chest lifted while relaxing your arms. Some people like to have their hands over their belly. That can be very nice. Some people like their arms just down by their sides. And others still will prefer to bring their arms up overhead. So those are usually the most common places to put our arms here. You choose what works best for you. And let's get into some of the other props. So as you stay here, you may discover that your legs, as you get relaxed, will start to sort of buckle away from each other and maybe even start to slide down the wall, and you'll have to exert some effort to keep them up. Restorative poses are all about releasing effort and getting into a place where you can be completely relaxed. So we want to get rid of that effort, and the best way to do that is to take a belt, make a loop with it. So you see I've made a nice small loop here.